we're recording this talk asking what if and how it can lead to possibilities or problems. And it can make you more aware of what you're thinking, because you're thinking your life is what your thoughts make it. And a lot of people aren't, and certainly I used to be very unaware of it. So asking what if can lead to possibilities, lifting it up, or problems. And I'll explain as I go through this. And then we'll have a meditation after this talk to follow it so that you can get really present to, under the guidance of your creator, the spirit of life, you can get present to what is blocking you from possibilities. Some people have a lot more problems, don't even seem to have possibilities, and they're out of balance. So this talk is a very important one for the reasons that I'm going to share it. And if you can just pick up one thing from what I'm sharing, and it's from experiences and from years and years of my own personal experience, but even recent experience, so that it's new and new for you, because a lot of people come again and again, and I want things to be new and fresh. We've done another talk like this, and that was done last time. That was, I think that's also on the YouTube, and that was done, but they're always different. Each talk is quite uniquely different because I create them new and fresh. The last one was done just after our car was wiped off. And I remember thinking we were so close to having had a head-on, and someone else's car was tipped over in a ditch. It's not about that today, but I remember thinking, oh my gosh, and next Saturday I'm talking on what if. And I thought of what if we hadn't been praying in the car? What if, we hadn't committed the car and our safety to him? What if? But for seconds we could have had a head-on crash with this car. And the other people were fine, we were fine, and it's a massive story, and it was so, so beautiful. The outcome was incredible, despite the fact that we lost our car and we got a new one. And the girls in the other car climbed out of the window and they were fine. So it was just an amazing story, and it all happened at St. Helens School. So I felt like God was saying it's all okay. Somehow or other it's going to be okay. So this what if, I actually felt to really focus on challenges, to see what if we saw challenges in our life as opportunities and possibilities for change, for the better. What if we saw challenges? How do we see challenges? How do you see challenges? Do you see them as problems? Certainly in my life, problems, I used to go into responsible role and saviour role, and put my feet in and go, oh, here we go again. And so I'd be resistant. I'd become resentful. I'd feel overwhelmed with the responsibility because I was doing it all in my own strength. So I saw things, challenges as problems. And what did I get? Problems, because I was trying to get in the middle and sort things out. Have you ever done that? What if you, like me, have now made a choice, and I have to keep making that choice of stepping out of the middle between two people that are having any angst, they're in relationships, or getting out of the middle of circumstances and coming upside of what I saw, this beautiful image of coming upside of the one who is all wisdom and all truth and all life, and bringing the challenge, not the problem, the challenge to the one who understands and has already overcome everything. He'll show us what to do, what to say, or what not to say, and what not to do. He'll teach us if we listen. So even just recently, when I was reminded of that, being told that years ago, get out of the middle, Helen. You're asking me to help, and you've got I've got asking God to help, the problem's in the middle, or at least I'm in the middle, and the problem is down below, and I am looking at the problem, focused on the problem, and I've been told those whose minds are stayed on me live in peace. I was focused on what was wrong, not what was possible. What do you do? Do you focus on, do you come up alongside? Do you unload? Do you tell him what you're feeling, what you're thinking? Let him into your soul? Are you real about where you're at? I certainly never used to be real. I was too busy trying to pretend and look like I had it all together, which I don't, by the way. So just recently, Jenny came to me this last week. I've had lots of angry people around me. And there's nothing wrong with anger. It's what we do with anger. Be angry, but do not sin. We're angry and we start dumping on others, or we start projecting, or we start being blaming and judging. That's wrong. So there's nothing actually wrong with anger. But in this case, I want to tell you about the 3 different types of anger. And at first, I was almost going to see them as a problem, because I don't like being in the presence of anger. Do you? I don't know. This energy field is just unbelievable. So Jenny was distraught when she rang, and I've changed the names of the people because it's not about who it is, it's about the story. Jenny, who has tried so hard for so long and been through so much trauma and so much, life and death stuff, all sorts of things. But I think at this particular moment in her life, whether she's burnt out, I don't know. It's not for me to ask. She came to me distraught, said she was trapped, she was in the dark, she was angry, everything was wrong. She was looking at all the things that were wrong in her life and all the wrong turns she'd made. She was frustrated and she was feeling physically awful. Her body was going through a change. And on top of all that, everything else was wrong. So she was seeing nothing but problems because of where she was at. Now, in this case, normally I'd say to people, well, actually, I did actually say to Jenny, do you want some help to move through this so you can really come to a place of peace? And the answer was no. So all Jenny wanted was for me to listen. And my great lesson was to ask the question and to listen. Do I do that all the time? No, but I'm still working on it. So I listened and I listened and I listened. And as I just was present and listened, and here's what I did. It became a possibility for me. It's always a possibility now because of years and years of practicing this. I just simply began to say the name of Jesus over and over and over again. And silently, and I remembered then another time when I'd been with Jenny and how that's all I could do as well. And that's all I could do was say the name of Jesus silently, and everything subsided. Well, guess what? Everything subsided. I just simply focused and changed I listened to Jenny, but I just simply listened. And as I just kept silently saying the name of Jesus, everything calmed. And in the end, I sensed just to give her a loving hug, because I do remember when I felt like I was about drowning and I was hanging on to life by fingernails because of the circumstances. I remember someone coming to the door and just looking at me and giving me what I call as a divine hug. They just came in and held me. And that's all I needed at that moment. That's all Jenny needed this day, was for me to give her a gentle hug and to be present. So that turned into a possibility, but I had to be careful that I didn't do it my way. I used to try and fix people. I used to try and, because I've seen so much, I know what's possible. I know how, no matter how disastrous it is, I've seen people again and again and again over the last 22 years particularly come into a place of peace, calm. safety, security, and all the negative stuff just melts away. But this is the thing. It was a possibility for me to remain in the presence of wisdom because I needed to be present to that person where that person was at that time. That was what was appropriate, as when that lady came to the door. So what do you do when people are angry in your presence? Do you react? Do you respond with anger? So you've got two choices here. If you react, you're compound. You get compound interest. Anger with anger is not good. It ends up like an explosion. Now, this is where it becomes even more of a possibility. What happens to me now, and this has taken years of me spending time each day, making sure I'm still and allowing the peace and the calm to come as much as possible, and committing my day and walking with the one who gives me the breath every day, living for him. I've forgotten what I was going to say. Gee whiz, I used to do that a lot. I used to get sidetracked heaps of times. Maybe I'm not meant to say it, so I won't say it. I'll continue on. So, okay, and there's a second person who was angry, got angry, and rightfully so. I'll call her Jill. She had only asked me for something to be present, to the presence, just to be still. And I wanted something else. I did ask, but I asked questions, but those questions challenged Jill when she wasn't ready to be challenged. You know, and I did it for me more than her. So I had to apologize for that. So in that case, even though there was anger, there was a righteous anger. You know, that I needed to say, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Because I'm human and I reacted in that way rather than responding. That my response was to apologize. And Jack recently, this has all happened this last week. It's full moon. I think when full moon, things go crazy, or at least it triggers off the things that are unresolved. That which is unresolved repeats itself. Remember that. So rather than getting frustrated with it, walk into it with a wonderful counsellor and see what he has to say to you. So Jack shared he was emotionally challenged. One of his family members said something to him, and it was nothing from my point of view, but he was triggered off. And it just opened the door to all of these beliefs about him not being a good person, etc., etc., etc. I did react. So you can react or you can respond. See, there's a difference. I reacted by saying, no, my perspective, I hear that, but this is my perspective. Jack did not want to listen. So I had to learn yet again. This is all about listening and learning. What if I was just silent? I heard from Jack today. And today I thought, I've learned a lesson this week. And my great lesson, what if I am just present and I just listen and I invite Jesus in the presence here. And I felt such peace. And Jack's in a bit of a journey and now, you know, now thinks his health's all up the pole and having to go to the doctor. But it's not my journey. My journey and my role is, what if I'm just present to Jack and just loving where he's at? Isn't that what our Creator does? He just keeps loving us patiently till we learn to listen, to love him, to listen, to learn. The 3 L's. So what do you do? I'm going to ask again, because that's what I had to ask myself. What if you didn't react to situations? Because reacting is spontaneous. And sometimes we say and do things that can't be taken back and can only make a situation even worse. Rather than taking on, and this is huge, this is what I call growing up, and I had to learn it. is I had to learn to take on the right sort of responsibility, and that is come aside and be still and bring that person into my mind's eye and really unload all my feelings and my thoughts and then gain their perspective from the wise counselor, and then the wonderful counselor, Spirit of Truth, his perspective. And always, always there's a calm. Always I gain a perspective that is different to mine. It's usually compassionate rather than full of resentment. And it just calms me down. So what if you did that? Every time you got upset or you were in the presence of somebody who was angry or somebody was rude to you, relationships. The world's a crazy place at the moment, it appears. What if you get upset about anything and you come aside and you explain how you feel? That's your heart and what you think. It's your mind. And you ask him to show you, because at first I didn't have a clue. I was so disconnected years ago. So that's something I'm going to repeat throughout the whole seminar, because, that what if you didn't react but responded when you were calmer? I remember going to an advanced seminar once, because I've done many, many courses over the years. And in that seminar, they said, or he explained he had to go and had to ring somebody who he'd had some angst with, some problems with. Now, I know that most of you will have had or will have people that are off-centre, who are problematic in your life or create, can really create bad energy. And you can't change them, can you? But you can do this. You could call upon Jesus at that moment, like I did. Would you do that? That's the big lesson for me this week, is call upon him and listen. Do I speak? Do I listen? Do I say anything? Just listen. Listen. To every action, there's a reaction. And in this particular gentleman's case, he was going to the phone and he realised and was made aware that he was really not calm. He was not peaceful. He was upset. And, I know in my case, sometimes I just want to go to the phone and I want to just let people have it. I want to just, go with them. That's a reaction. But now I've grown up a little bit and I'm still growing up. In his case, he came aside, and this is where I learned it from. And he said, I had to resolve all my feelings and what I'd like to do to this person, what I'd like to say. And I just did it in the presence of God, and I just let it all go. And then I got a real perspective and I felt sorry for this guy. So he said, then I was at peace and I felt that I could go to the phone in this new way. And this person, he'd always had problems with this person. For every action, there's a reaction. But this time he actually dealt with his own energy. His energy was calm. He rang the person and he was so surprised that the conversation went so well, because he took responsibility for his own energy, bad energy, anxious energy, fearful energy, confused energy, frustrated energy. Frustration's always, we want it our way. We want it differently. We don't want this, we don't want that. So then go, you know where to go, back to the throne and tell him and say, and then unload and then just get his perspective. Another time, just as the last one, another time a person was really, really quite rude and had really, people's energy, had bad energy. You could call this a relationship talk on what if. But aren't we in relationship, whether we're at work, whether we're at home, whether we're in church? We're dealing with people. We're dealing with relationships, and we need to know this. I believe it's changed. The fruits are shown in my life. And when I react, the bad fruit is there. So I learned from that. So Harry was really rude one day, and I thought I could feel the energy, and I thought there's no point in even entering in. No point in even saying anything, and certainly not even worthwhile listening because he was so bad. I think he just needed to be left alone. I walked away and said nothing, and I just had a little prayer for him. This is what you can do. You're never, ever powerless. You can pray to the one who can do anything. Anything's possible. Possibilities. And then Harry came looking for me and apologised later on, sometime down the track. Said, I'm so sorry. I realised I was out of line then. I used what if in with Trudy at one of the workshops. A lady came up and said to me, I have a friend here. Please come and see her. She needs help, but she doesn't believe in God. So I used what if. So I said, what if you believed in truth? Do you believe in truth, wisdom, love, justice? And I gave her a menu. She said, oh, I can deal with justice. She had a lot of justice needed. So what about, I said, what if I asked the spirit of justice? So it's very gentle. She said, oh, yeah, you can do that. She had the most wonderful breakthrough because I went very gently around her. I asked, what if? When I listened to who she related to. That was a really beautiful thing. That problem became a possibility, and it actually was wonderful. Okay, these are the choices that we need to be. This is a guideline. You're not going to remember all these, so just take on one. We choose. And again, unless we have awareness, and I've already said I just take time each day, otherwise I become unaware. We become better or bitter. Resentment. I used to be a ball of resentment. I didn't even know I was resentful. I was so disconnected. What are you? Do you become better when things go wrong, or do you become bitter? Question mark. And you know better, you're learning. You become bitter, you get stuck and trapped. Okay, so what if when you're challenged, you become faithful rather than fearful? And, faithful is simply trusting the things that not seeing the evidence of things to come. It's sort of like you have no idea what's happening. You don't even know whether God's going to be there. You don't know what's going to happen, but you just choose to be faithful and listen to his word. I went to Mass this morning and it's talking all about, if you love me, you'll listen to me. And if you listen to me, you'll take the path of life. Who do we listen to? So we either become faithful or fearful. And really, faithful is constantly called for trust, not only consciously, but deep within us. Merciful, not judgmental. What if we became merciful? And I think the three-way perspective always brings me to mercy rather than being judgmental. But I start with judgments because I'm real. But then I become merciful because I gain his perspective. We'll be doing this meditation soon. When you get challenged, what if you became more open to that challenge and you saw the possibilities? Or do you become closed? Do you hide, protect yourself? When you're open, you listen and learn, and you're present to yourself. So few are present to themselves these days. Forgiving, not revengeful. And there's a beautiful thing that says here, I just love this. It says, what if we really took on, we've already been forgiven for the ways we've hurt people we love? What if we've already been forgiven for not being perfect parents? Hello? What if, and we could forgive ourselves. So if we've been forgiven, why can't we forgive ourselves? What if we're already been forgiven for the stuff we haven't even done yet? So even in the future, the stuff-ups are only to learn from. What if we took on learning rather than judgments? We took on listening and trusting rather than fear and shame. Maybe forgiving ourselves isn't something that happens once or a silent retreat, but it's a daily option. Give us this day our daily forgiveness, even for ourselves. So when you're doubting yourself, what if, when I work with people and I have an encountering session, I listen to them and I ask the wonderful counsel to guide them. At the end of it, they go from a dark space. One lady was crying her eyes out. She had so much that she had never expressed and she hadn't released. And I just listened and listened. And then as we listened to all the feelings and all the thoughts, because as you believe, she was believing it, her life kept going around in circles. And then she had to forgive. And then I said, now listen to the truth. And she burst into laughter. She went from, her tears were turned into laughter. You've heard that before. So at the end of that wonderful encounter, I've seen people who have been to all sorts of help and not got it, and have had breakthroughs. And they said the next day, oh, that couldn't have happened. They're doubting. And we've been told, what if we doubt? But what if we don't doubt? Let's just focus on that one. We don't doubt. We don't go into the future. We've been told not to go in the future. We stay in the present, in the presence. We don't doubt, but believe, despite the fact that we don't know, just like Job did. Perhaps we could trust in the Lord with all of our hearts and lean not on our own understanding or wanting to understand. In all our ways, we can submit to him because he knows the path to freedom. I've seen it in my life. I've experienced it. I'm sure you have. Now, faith is the assurance of things in Hebrews 11 hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. And I'm going to finish because I think I've said enough. This is beautiful. I have a little book called Jesus Calling. I read it every day. This woman used to reflect every day, and she wrote down what she got, and she's just sharing it with us. And this is Jesus Calling, and everything about what if's coming to me at the moment. So listen to this. Can you listen to this? What if you responded to this suggestion? As you sit quietly in my presence, I shine peace into your troubled mind and heart. I want to verify that. When I first started, I'd sit in my chair in a grumpy mood, and I would be honest, but I had no idea what to do with myself. And eventually, after half an hour, 2 hours, I'd feel different. I had no idea what he did. So little by little, you are freed from earthly shackles and lifted above your circumstances. You gain my perspective on your life. And that's what we're going to do in the meditation. Enabling you to distinguish between what is important and what is not. So I invite you to rest in my presence, receiving joy that no one can take away from you. But we can change our focus. I think that's plenty from today's talk. And if you want to, you can go over it again on YouTube. But if you just take one thing that stands out and apply it to your life, what's that one thing? And you can ask for a thing called grace, which is an unmerited gift, to put it into action, that one thing that's coming to your mind right now. Don't take it all on. You'll get indigestion. I've learned all of this bit by bit by bit. One area will speak to you. So what if you spent time each day? What if you turn all your problems into possibilities? Why don't you give it a try? And you don't have to pray long prayers. Just come as you are and be real. Have a real relationship. He created you for that. Thank you for listening.